Good morning. For us, it's actually, I wonder, between pleasure and fun, because when we were asked maybe to come and to talk together today, if one looks on the background, it's very interesting because Gal, who is a professor of oncology and immunology and those things, is invited all the time to give talks about the field of expertise of his, which is between biology, immunology, and the other things that sometimes we call it between ourselves, that's the world based on carbon. We'll get to that maybe later. And I'm invited to give presentations here and there, locally and globally, about technology, about communication, about semiconductor business, about M&A, and these kind of things. Believe it or not, in our experience, we have never been together in the same conference. Not as speakers, as audience. Actually, in the morning when we spoke with somebody and he told us that he's an attorney, he said, okay, between you and both of us, we are never, there is no cross-action between that. And needless to say that we never spoke together in a presentation. But when we were approached and asked, and thank you for the opportunity, we thought it's interesting, and the main reason that it's interesting is because it's challenging. What can we talk about? We can talk about many things. Actually, we can have a whole conference to discuss. Each item that Giora Yaron presented, we can talk about that. Each item, some of the numbers that Ed gave at the beginning, maybe later on I'll get to one of them about the content, the quantillion. I'll make it more easy for you, I hope, that you'll understand. But then what we decided is to kind of play with it, which means I am from the world of, which is based on silicon. Gal is handling the world of based on carbon, and it's a challenge to see what we can do together. We like challenges, we are curious, we like to find things, so maybe we can play between those two and let Gal start about some of the innovations, some of the interesting things that he's dealing with, and then I'll talk about the things that I'm dealing with, and then we'll try to look to a convergence between them. One last point before I give the stage to Gal to start with, there is one basic difference between his world and mine. I have blueprints. All the things that we do, somebody invented them, and we have the blueprints. For what he is doing, to the best of my knowledge until today, we do not have the blueprints. And it will be very interesting to try to understand what it is. I assume you understand what I'm trying to convey. So maybe, still, let's start. Okay. Let's start?
Yeah.
Actually, we don't know yet how it's going to happen. We are kind of playing. Originally, I wanted to say that maybe the violins that we're looking for to have a concerto or something didn't come. Anyhow, Gal.
Okay, let's start. So first of all, also I'd like to thank you for the challenge and the fun that it's going to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, all of you know, or perhaps most of you know, that carbon and silicon are just right above each other in the periodic table of elements. So it means that they share or may share a lot of common features. So it's not just silicon and carbon in terms of profession or areas of expertise, but actually there's a lot of chemical similarities, right, which could be the perhaps basis for some ideas and thoughts. So I'm an oncologist, medical oncologist by training, and I'm also a scientist in the field of cancer research, and my main focus is immunology. It's the study of the immune system. And I just came to think about it when I heard Paul Donovan's talk, that maybe I always thought that I was trying to help mankind by prolonging or extending life expectancy, but it seems that it's rather maybe causing more problems than actual good. But I will try to focus on what I'm trying to do,
maybe
and
next
hopefully
time it won't be above 65, but about 85.
85. So,
yeah.
but I leave you, the economists or policymakers, to try and solve the problem of demographics, and we will just try to focus on providing to provide good services in terms of healthcare. So I'll just try to give you a brief intro on what's going on today in oncology. Cancer, as you all know, everybody knows cancer, either hopefully not personally, but through friends or through the media. Cancer is huge challenge. Why is it a challenge? Because it's a problem that originates from our own body. It's a cancer cell. Actually, it's a cell of our own, which becomes a traitor. It no longer follows the rules of the body. This is really an oversimplification, but I hope that you get a sense of it. So how can you treat something like that? It's very easy to understand how to treat a virus or a bacteria. It's something completely different. How can you treat a cancer cell? You need to identify what's unique in the cancer cell. So for many years, we've been trying to focus on therapies that kill dividing cells, like chemotherapy or radiation, stuff like that. That's the bread and butter of oncology. And it's very easy to understand what's the problem here. These are non-specific therapeutic modalities. Therefore, if they're non-specific, they kill also normal cells that are dividing. For example, in the intestines. This is why chemotherapy, when you get chemotherapy, the patients, they suffer from diarrhea, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of side effects, and this lack of specificity leads to toxicity, and this limits our ability to kill the cancer cells, to kill the cancer. If we could treat a patient with 50 kilograms of chemotherapy, I assure you no cancer cell would survive. The problem is that this thing called the patient around the cancer would also die. So this is why we can't do that. So over the last 2 decades or so, we've been trying to be smarter than that. We've been trying to look into the rules that becomes deranged within the cancer. And for that, we've been taking advantage of the genomic era, and things that we can do today, we just couldn't do before it. Dad, I believe that you're going to talk about the Moore's law, but we also have some sort of a Moore's law in genetics.
There is a difference. But yours is a different derivative.
Yeah,
ours, it takes a long time, so when you do the arithmetic behind it, the integral, I'll get to it. Then the impact. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I believe that ours is bigger.
Whatever.
I'll give you an example. I mean, probably all of you heard about the Human Genome Project, right? It was an international project comprised of 20 countries. It cost $10 billion to sequence just one human genome. It took 10 years. Today, that was about 15 or 17 years ago, it was concluded. Today, you can do it at a cost of $200 or $300 in less than a day, in a few hours. So, yeah, so this is crazy. So the area under the curve here is, the slope is crazy. So this enables us now to study in depth the rules of cancer. So at least so we think. And that's the problem, actually. So far, we've been trying to identify those genetic alterations inside the cancer cell in order to see what's wrong, and then to try and devise some therapeutics against those things. And actually, this sort of strategy, it yielded several quite potent drugs. But the problem, number one, the cancer always is able to circumvent a single intervention, because it's so diverse that I can't even explain the diversity of what's going on or of what's going on inside the cancer cell. And second, usually these interventions, they apply only to a fraction of the patients. We want to impact all of them to create a problem for you with the enlarging demographics. So this is why we need to do something else. And the way to address that is by looking at the problem of cancer from an entirely different perspective, and that's the perspective of the immune system. The immune system is there. It's a product of hundreds of billions of years of evolution with a mission to identify threats. Danger could be external threats, bacteria, viruses, etc., or cells that become problematic, cancer cells. So if we could wield this power to treat cancer, it would be great. And there is a lot of data showing that indeed the immune system is capable of doing that. But the question is always, okay, so if the immune system is so great, how comes that you have cancer? How comes that there is cancer? And for more than a century, we thought that cancer is just like an infection. If there is a problem in the immune system, you may get a virus, or you may get a cancer, so the treatments should be rather similar. You need to boost the immune system, and that has been failing for a century. We've been trying to do that, and we've been failing. And the reason for that is because we got it all wrong. The cancer develops not because the immune system is weak, but rather because it co-evolves with the immune system. So we need to do something completely different. And today, that's the present. For example, one of the ideas that we had to look at it is from the perspective of the cancer cell. The cancer wants to evade the immune system, therefore it develops all of these shields and mechanisms to evade the immune system. It could be a melanoma, it could be a lung cancer, it could be breast cancer, it doesn't really matter. And I won't go into the biological details because it's not really important, but we identified such a mechanism and we created a technology based on it, which eventually was sold as a spin-off company, a startup company was sold to MSD, to Merck Sharp and Dohme, about 2 years ago. But that's just one project that we were involved in. There are obviously other similar projects and drugs which are currently the mainstay of oncology. It's 10 years ago, nothing of that existed. So this is a paradigm shift in which we wield the power of the immune system, not by looking into the genomics of the cancer cell, but rather by looking into the multiple interactions between the different cancer cells and the different components of the immune system. These processes, they occur everywhere in the body. We need the GPS for that.
Talk about that.
We need the GPS.
Yes.
And there are multiple components involved there. It's not just one thing,
And
one molecule.
And communication between them.
Yeah, they interact with each other. This is communication, connectivity.
Yes.
And we are starting to understand the laws, but if we want to really impact, we need to make the laws. We need to be engineers maybe, or to combine engineering with biology. And maybe the most important initial question is the question of size. You can't really put a motor into a small cell or small molecule. So we are working in the areas of nano, 10 nanos, 100 nanos.
And that's the numbers that
Can
we
you live with that?
Yeah, and maybe I'll take it from here. So actually our world, and when I say it's ours, but the ones that I'm looking into in the kind of the technology and semiconductor stuff, we didn't have a paradigm shift like you have and the difference of terminology, and this is what I referred to before with the Moore's law. Ours, it moves constantly for over 40 years, by the way. But sizing is something that changed dramatically because actually, I'll speak about Moore's law. I'm sure everybody knows, but just to make sure. Moore was living about in around 1972, 73, 74, 40 years ago. And at the time, he created kind of a law that people thought for many, many years that it's a technological law. It's not a technological law, it's a business law, economic. And he said that approximately each 2 years, things will be smaller by a factor or two, or will be cheaper by a factor or two, or you have more condensed possibility in operation in the semiconductor business by a factor of 2. So if one's know basic mathematics, taking 40 years or 40 whatever, dividing by 2, it's about 20. 20 is a nice number because 2 to the power 20 is 1 million. So actually a change along 40 years with a factor of million, 1 million, if you look into all the other business of technology, this is the most relevant one and very impressive. And thanks to it, the size of the result from it, the number of transistors that can be put in one silicon piece increased and increased and increased and increased. Actually, it started with many microns. There was a time that a very honorable professor of the Technion, that many people say today that, well, why did he say that? But he was an honorable professor, the late Professor Kidron. He said, micron is a limit. It won't be able to go below 1 micron. The distance between the elements of the transistor, the impact of putting them all in a silicon. But the number went below 1 micron and went down to nanos, and we got to 130 nanos. I'm getting to your nanos in a moment. And then we went to 65 nanos, and then we went to 45 nanos, to 28 nanos. Actually, 28 nanos was a very interesting number for bankers or for investors. And the reason is, along the number that we went down all the way to 28 nanos, the price per 1 unit went down. And therefore, the mass production and everything was excellent. This is why it was uneconomical. When it got into 28 nanos and it went to 22 nanos, the economical number went up. Many people ask me many times, so why are you going down if it's more expensive? The reason, there are various reasons. My personal view on that reason is because companies want to compete, and only the big companies or the big guys, they can enable lower and lower numbers. And therefore, that's the way to get rid of all your competitors or to buy them. So then we went to 22, to 21, to 16, to 12. Actually, today we are sub 10 nanos. Sub 10 nanos, I think it's the number around your world, right? Yeah. For molecules or big molecules, maybe proteins.
Atoms.
Atoms. Speaking about atoms, an interesting point. Many people say, so what is going to happen in the next few years or in the next decade with Moore's law? Will it continue? First of all, the question is it important? The answer, yes, it's important, because this is the drive that the price of memory goes down, the price of all the possibilities of cloud, as people call it, go down. Some of the services, you don't pay for it, internet, some part, everybody expects it to be free of charge, and so on and so forth. If Moore's law doesn't continue, I'm not sure. But the interesting question, you said atoms, right? Do you know what is the distance between 2 atoms of silicon? Anybody knows? It's 0.6 nano. What does that mean? That if we go to 6 nanos, that means that we have 10 atoms. What can you do with 10 atoms? Not much. So will it stop then? I'm not sure, because like the 1 micron, maybe something else will come. Either we start to look into the carbons, maybe you can do things together with that. Maybe you look on photons, their size. The size of a photon is a very interesting question. What is the size of a photon? And photonics is very, very interesting. One of the companies that Giora was referring to is a company that was referring to some elements like that. So the question today, when we look on the potentials and the possibilities in actually it's your world, because everybody uses here the phones and you know what? Even young kids are talking about the cloud. They believe it's a real cloud. In my world, in the cloud, we thought about like angels. Today, the angels are like the Amazons, the Googles, and the Facebooks. But what are the kind of dimensions that we are talking when we are going down? First of all, we can put a lot and a lot and a lot. I'll give you a number. This is the number that we can comprehend, and then I'll get to content. And the number, our company, but other companies do the same, we just released a chip. You know what's a chip? You know, small one, integrated circuit. Over 8, how we call it? 8 tera transistors on it. It's a huge number. It's millions of millions. It's actually, you got a billion, it's 1,000 millions and a million of transistors in one chip. Now, this is something that people cannot comprehend. So let's talk about the other element, another dimension. The other dimension is content. One of the elements, I don't remember whether it was Paul or Ed, said that each moment or each hour or each year, whatever, we are generating a lot of information. I thought it would be interesting for an audience like yourself or ourselves, instead of using the tera, peta, zeta, whatever, to use it in a different way. So I have an updated number for 2017. Do you know if, I'll give you 2 numbers, and from that, I hope you'll understand. The first number is, I'll take a 1 month, and the other one is 1 hour. If we take 1 hour of content, 1 hour of content, and I want to translate it into devices of high-definition devices. High-definition devices could be like a HDTV or a machine that is pushing stuff at HD. How many devices in parallel are equal to 1 hour? What do you think? 1 billion. It's 960 million, actually. But 1 billion HD devices in parallel, that's the amount of content generated in 1 hour these days. Now let's talk about 1 month. 1 month, if we take the content at 1 month and we put it in serial, how long will it take to see it? Or how long will it take? If it's serial and not parallel. 1 month. I'll give you the number. Maybe now you'll feel it more. 5 million years. That's the content that we are pushing these days. And it's growing and growing and growing. Actually, if people are looking on a like a graph, you can see my finger on the you see it here? If this is 2015, and this is 2017, and the projection to further, it goes like that. The numbers are huge, and it's growing and growing. So this is the second dimension. So one dimension is the size that goes down, and thanks to that, we have more and more and more capacity. The second one is the content, and I gave you a few examples, and the projection that Paul or Ed gave us. And the third one is the question of connectivity. Connectivity, it means devices that connect to each other. Like in 2015, let's have the estimates of 2015, 2017, and let's say 2020. If you ask me about 2030, I don't know. Actually, 2020, there are debates between the various analysts, and I meet analysts, and when I talk with them, in many cases I smile, not that I have any problem with that, but devices that connect. The original number, when we started with it, like 2010, 2011, was like the number of the people on Earth. It was in the area of 5 to 7 billion. These days, today, it's twice or thrice the number of people on Earth connected. If you do the calculation, it's between 15 to 18 billion. And the projection to 2020 depends whom you ask. Some say 30 billion, some say 50 billion. It doesn't matter. It's tens of billions of devices connected. Connected means that they are communicating with each other around other areas and so on and so forth.
That may I interject?
Huh?
These numbers are nothing in the human body. It's nothing. What are a few billions?
Nothing, right?
300 million cells die every minute.
So you say this can be
It's nothing.
a nothing. Now, in addition to that, you said before GPS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the interesting part that I look at it, and I think, and we started to chat about it on the way from the parking here, was about the accuracy. If you remember, a few years ago, not too many, GPS was a nice instrument, only rich people had it, and it gave you an accuracy of like meters or maybe feet. I'm not talking about the military. They were more accurate. Not too accurate, by the way. But then it became cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. I assume you know the number. These days, the IP that we put into a chip of a GPS is like between 5 to 15 cents, maybe less. And the accuracy is better. And people are looking into accuracy not just about location, but if you have Waze like or Google Maps or whatever, they ask you all the time to turn on the Wi-Fi or to turn the Bluetooth because they can make other measurements utilizing algorithms, and in this way to put it together into more accuracy. And actually, if you go to a store, they can get you to lead you into the store. Actually, in some of the things that we are working on, you can get to the shelf. But this is not enough to the accuracy that you are looking into, right?
We need an accuracy to the level of a cell.
Of a cell.
You know what? To the level of an organ could also be nice, but we are talking about not an accuracy of meters or centimeters.
But in a body.
In the body, yeah.
So one of the good things that we can do, everybody is talking about connectivity outside, which is I have my phone and I'm connected to my friends and I'm connected to the machines and to the cars, and the cars are talking with each other. And actually there is a very famous humorist, a guy that was living in Switzerland actually, and he died many years ago. His name was Ephraim Kishon, and he wrote a very nice humorous about it, about the fact that they were talking about innovation and new things and so on and so forth. And in the end he says, well, I'm going to buy 2 computers that play chess. So he asked him, why do you need 2? He said, no problem, they will play one against the other and I'll go to the movies. But today we want to connect to everything, but we are always, think about it, we are trying to connect outside. We want to, all the connectivity, the billions and stuff, it's outside. All the accuracies and all the places that we get, it's outside. What we should look into is
Inward.
inside, inboard, which is in use. When we speak about the universe, we are talking outside ourselves. So maybe the universe is the person, right, Gal?
As we say, there is a saying in Hebrew, each person is an entire universe. So with this regard, this is really the case. And when we are talking about connectivity and all of these numbers, it at least seems to me that the challenge, number one, of miniaturization, I mean, now this is an excellent reason why to continue and go below the 10 nano.
Exactly,
10
to
nano
the 1
numbers.
nano maybe.
Yeah, because you can then be a player inside the body. And each person, I mean, in terms now of challenges, each person provides, or each patient provides the challenges of the entire world now with the semiconductor industry in terms of connectivity, how to guide the processes, the cells. Today, for example, when we treat a patient, we provide the medication. It's once you administer the medication, that's it. You have absolutely no control where the drug is going to go, where it's going to function, when it's going to function, on which on the subsequent processes. There's absolutely no control. Do you know that when we treat, this is absolutely idiotic when you come to think about it. When we treat a cancer patient, we give the drug, we wait for 3 months, and then we check whether it helped or not. This is
actually one of the things that we
unacceptable in engineering.
Yes, and you, with all due respect, and I do have the respect of the physicians and stuff, you work in open loops. You don't do feedbacks. We engineers are the other way around. I don't know if it's good. Sometimes we are getting into the loop and we stay in the loop and we don't go out by thinking. But one of the things that we have to add to it is something that we have to think about also. Because if you take the electronics and the end elements and you put it inside, it's marvelous. And I can give you an example for myself. I'm not revealing anything. Most of the people have like a kind of a little bit of cholesterol and they get, the lipidos, statins, and it's statistics.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it works, sometimes not. It depends on the people, it depends on the time. So if we have like an element with the connectivity, it knows exactly when, take it on, get the molecule, put it where it is. It's not science fiction, by the way, and do it like that, right?
All we need for that is 0-1 signal, for example.
That's an easy one, but how do you power it?
Oh, this is an excellent question.
Is it a question to me or to you?
I think it's a question more for both of us, because we can't really, we can't really give power, unless you're a healer or something like that. You can't really power by using batteries, except for medical devices, and this is not the case. This is not a real device in the conventional thought, but the human body is filled with energy in terms of ATP, for example.
Right.
Heat. Kinetic energy. The blood flows. This is kinetic energy. Maybe the actual work of the heart by pumping the blood, providing kinetic energy, and the availability of biological energy.
So actually we can use it like a dynamo.
Some sort of a dynamo, but it also needs to be provided with the right signals of where to turn on or turn off. And this is the simplest circuit that you need. I say, how many transistors do you need to provide the 0-1 signal? 3?
Nothing.
Not 1?
No.
3.
3.
Yes. So 3.
The normal flip-flop.
Yeah, 3. So 3 subcellular, no, it's not even subcellular, 3 circuits at the molecular level, at a nano level, implemented on or printed on a molecule would provide one of the most important features which is currently entirely lacking in medicine and in pharmacology, and that is to activate or deactivate the molecule at the right time or the right place. Now, if you start adding additional layers of where it would work, or if it would be able to interact with other molecules.
And you want to know where it is.
You know where it is. And so these things need to interact with each other, to interact with the body, and to provide some feedback now externally back to the maybe either to the physician or to the device, to the iPhone, I don't know.
Maybe something else, or maybe to the cloud.
Could pose some security problems?
Security, yes. Security is an issue, by the way, in our world. For 2 reasons. One is psychological and one is real. The psychological is because I don't know if men are bad by nature or because the temptation, it's always, there's a famous saying that I heard from Americans, it's always the competition between greed and fear. So security is very important, and we spoke about the securities, and Giora gave the example of the company that was sold before time. It's never before time, it's never after time. After time it is, after it's belly up, then it's after time. But security is very important. Now in this case, security is even more important because we discussed once, if you recall, the issue of Cheney. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the issue of Cheney? Oh, that's a very known thing. Actually, it was on internet a few years ago. A guy, there is the black hat and the white hat. Are you familiar with that? The good guys, the bad guys in hacking
Hackers.
and stuff, hackers, yes. And they have conferences, and they had a conference in San Francisco, and one of them said that he knows how to hack pacemakers remotely. Those pacemakers that you wirelessly, remotely adjust. Actually, when my father had to have a replacement of that, I recommended him not to get this new one, but to have the old one that you have to come and connect. And one of the hackers indicated that he knows how to do it, and he's going to demonstrate it on Cheney, who had a pacemaker.
And this guy disappeared.
And this guy disappeared, and they found his body a month after that. And there was no police investigation. Yes. It's not a fairy tale. So anyhow, in this case, in the body, it's even worse, right?
It really is frightening, but I mean, at the moment, these are challenges, real challenges for medical devices, insulin pumps, and pacemakers, and all of that, hospital medical records, and doctors' orders, and all of the ventilation machines, etc., etc., etc. But these are all of these are devices. These are either connected in the hospital.
You were talking inside.
Yeah. So.
But you said that the genome is unique, is it? Can we use it as a mechanism to authenticize that it is only you?
Yes,
maybe.
Maybe, yeah, because
that's an interesting way, by the way.
Yeah, because the genome is comprised of sequence of 4 elements.
But maybe we can take some of the sequences and we can work with that,
and turn them into authentication sequences, which would be personalized.
Yes.
And I don't think that unhackable is something that one can say, but
never.
Yes, but perhaps something that can be altered because each one of us has more than one unique sequence, and the stretches. I mean, there are 3 billion letters.
Yeah, whenever we get to your world, the carbon world, the numbers are multiplied, right?
Today you can sequence, but you can sequence the human genome in 8 hours. Perhaps in 5 or 10 years it would be less. But then it would cause I mean, it could become a problem because then people could steal your sequence.
Yes, but you know, Gal, I understand. Are you familiar?
But
what is the number of bits that we use in our low-level kind of high-tech stuff?
No.
We are not in the number of the sequences that you have. But anyhow, it comes to another point that I think that can be also interesting in the convergence world. And this is something that comes from technology and high-tech. There are a few buzzwords that you probably heard, like AI, ML, DL. Are you familiar with that? Machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, and this kind of stuff. Actually, I was very happy with that because back in the 80s, when I did my PhD, it was in AI, it was artificial intelligence. At the time, it was a buzzword too. Actually, people ask me, what is artificial intelligence? And I have a great definition. I'll give you a definition of something which is the reverse, and when you reverse it, you will understand what is artificial intelligence, okay? Natural stupidity. That everybody knows. So artificial intelligence is the reverse, the other thing. Recently, it became also very popular. It's very important stuff. Mobilize, just an example, but all the autonomous cars, autonomous decisions, autonomous stuff, autonomous hedging. Actually, I saw a company in a fintech doing excellent, phenomenal dynamic forwarding system. If you're interested, we can talk about it. And things like that, we can leverage that in your world, which is right.
It's extremely important because the amount of data, I mean, it may, I'm not sure whether at the moment the amount of data that is actually available at the moment is at the magnitude of data of the international transactions, but if we start looking into that, the amount of data is immense. And just to analyze the data. And if we take the leap forward, when we will have all of these carbon silicon chimeras and the need for GPS connectivity to understand the pharmacological effects, to monitor on real life, the effect on the immune system, on cancer cells, or on the heart, or whatever, something needs to analyze, interpret, provide the right cues, the feedback cues back into that. Even physicians can't do that, even though some of us think that they are God, but we are not. And these are definitely, in medicine, big data, systems biology, systems pharmacology, systems medicine, all of that, these type of analysis are now, they've infiltrated medicine, and I believe that in 5 or 10 years, we just won't be able to understand how we treated patients just a decade ago. Because, I mean, even as an oncologist who specializes in immuno-oncology, in tumor immunology, I've been in this field for 17 years, and as an oncologist, 5 or 6 years. At the moment, I cannot follow the data in my specialty, not to mention all of the other stuff. So clearly, AI is going to dominate the medical world within a decade or two.
Yes, and the AI not only in the aspects like the Watson that is doing the analysis, but also the big data itself that you don't know even what are the rules.
Yeah.
Because today I saw that there are some examples of like seeing various radiology or various photos of various things.
Even here in Tel Aviv University, they do.
In Tel Aviv, yes. And when you do the deep learning is very advanced in Tel Aviv University, speaking about that. And looking on the two, a physician can say this is good, this is bad. Sometimes he cannot. Sometimes you know the answer at the end eventually and you don't understand why. And these kind of systems can help to that. And there is another element if you're speaking about AI, and I have to, because when people who are used to talk about AI, Ray Kurzweil is an icon. Actually, when I did my PhD, he was in MIT, not that famous then. And he's talking about something that I'm going to take it to here, but in a different aspect. And he's talking about the singularity point. And if you're not familiar with it, I do recommend to read it in the internet. It's very interesting. He's talking about what is going to happen in 1947. He calculated the year. He's not sure that that's the year. I met with him and he said something that's a kind of a calculation, a model. But the basic is that with all the elements and all the things that we said before, we can model some of the elements of the processes of neural nets and things like that. And some of the people believe that based on the thing that we can do today, and that's modeling like an insect brain, we'll be able to model a human brain within 5 to 10 years. And then we can model the whole universe, brains within 20 years. So people who are afraid of that or paranoid, then they can think about Matrix and the Terminator. But people who are more optimistic, I'm looking for Paul. So the optimistic people will say, great, because then we can have all the gadgets, kind of instruments, possibilities, nano elements, nano features, connectivity, connections. Integrated within, get info outside, the AI will do that, and the common, integrated, integrative knowledge and possibilities modeling of the whole universe will provide the answer instantly to each and one of you. And I think it's a good point to stop.
Yeah.
I have questions.
We hope that something of that would happen in 2030.
Maybe.
On the stage.
Questions?
It's a perfect opportunity to ask some questions, and I personally really want to know more about Dick Cheney's pacemaker, but...
You can read it in internet.
No, and I know...
Actually, today
it's not fake news. It's true.
Not fake news.
Well, I don't know with the new definition of fake news, but one thing which is very interesting, there is a very famous saying that I personally believe it's true. Once in the past, when researchers, people, and so on and so forth wanted to get an answer, The question was, where can you find the answer? Today, this is not the question. You know where you can find the answer. The big question is, how can you find the answer?
What is the question?
What is the question?
And what are the questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, and if we can have the microphone over there.
Don't see
Start with
anything.
that.
Hello. I would like to ask more about personal dynamics between you two as father and son, and about how it is to raise more than one gifted human being.
Anyone?
This is not for me.
No?
This is not a
Ah, well,
question for me.
no, she said raise, so it follows. Well, first of all, I have to add to it my wife, because we are a family. Actually, there is a funny thing that happened to us. I indicated before that we have never been in a conference together. There was one case that we were invited to a round table with the CEO of one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies. I didn't know about him, he didn't know about me, and we met together on the round table, and when they asked me, who are you, for whatever reason, I decided to say, I am his father. So they looked at him and said, and who are you? He said, I am his son. So the guy who was the head of the table said, so where is the Holy Spirit? And my answer was, she's taking care of the grandchildren. But true story. But to your question, I believe personally that the important thing is a kind of a renaissance, which is you have to be a good person and you have to raise your children to be good persons. That's the most important. And then, when you look at it, it's the renaissance. When I say renaissance, don't be a specialist in something. Don't focus on something. Giora wrote, focus, focus, focus. It's true in business. But in our view, raising kids, it's true, but this is not the most important thing. Give them variety of ways, open-minded, to look on, to be interested in medicine, or interested in technology, or interested in paint, or interested in music, or interested in arts, interested in social work. Everything is important. Learn everything. Be interested in everything and be able to kind of project from one domain to another domain. Therefore, for example, all our kids, they all play on instruments, they're interested in music, they're interested in being good people. And one very important thing, be kind to others. If you, for example, this is why I liked Giora's last slide. If you can donate is not only money. If you donate your time, if you donate something or share something that you know, or money, to others, that helps become better people. And then you can become, and the fact that you are gifted or not, it's genetics. Yes. I hope I answered you. But we have no problem with that. Gal, we have 3 boys, and we have 2 daughter-in-laws, and we have like 5 grandchildren, and they're all equal. Treating them all equal is extremely important, by the way. Right, Gal?
Exactly. I try to follow with my children.
Yes.
Yes, please. רגע. שורה ראשונה.
I'll just ask it. I have a simple, maybe a bit bold question. Will we have a cure for cancer?
Oh. Number one, I think that the word cancer is, the question was, is there going to be a cure for cancer? So cancer is not one disease. Cancer is thousands of different diseases. And if we take a look at what happened in the last 2 or 3 decades, there was a wonderful advance. Actually, some of the cancers are cured today. Many of the hematological malignancies, lymphomas. I'm not talking about pediatric malignancies, which are very commonly are curable. But even testicular cancer is curable. Testicular cancer was an incurable disease up until the 80s or 90s. Now it's curable. 97% of the people are being cured from metastatic testicular cancer. Lance Armstrong, for example. Let's not talk about his other problems, but he was cured from his cancer. And we see in many cases that we need to alter the definition of cure, maybe. When we're talking about cure, we envisage elimination, eradication of all of the cancer foci. When we trigger the immune system. In many cases, I mean, we see it for years in the patients in which we succeeded in doing that. We continue to see some of the metastatic foci, metastatic lesions on CT scans of the patients. So, and they're there, but the patient, he has his normal function life, no side effects, continue to live, to work, to enjoy life for years and years and years. So what? That we see the CT in this, on the metastatic lesions on CT scans, if the immune system is capable to resume the control over these cells, so what? So is that a cure or not? I don't know. So we may need also to start and redefine our objectives. So to turn cancer from a lethal disease into a chronic disease, which is manageable at the level of the community, with the patients having their regular lifestyle. This is something that I'm willing to, I'll take it with both of my hands. And we are on the way to that on certain types of cancer, which pull the rest of the disciplines. Whatever the thing that happened now in melanoma, just until 5 years ago, the median survival of metastatic melanoma patients was half a year, 6 months, 6 to 9 months. Today we see the patients 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We see the patients. It's a huge burden on our clinic, because the patients, they stay alive, so they come back. And, so instead of a high turnover rate, now we have high volumes, but this is a good thing. Exactly the same process as, which was implemented very nicely in melanoma, we now see it in lung cancer, we see it in kidney cancer, we see it in lymphoma, head and neck, urothelial cancer, we see it over the board, across the board we call it. So we are in a very good direction. This is, I think, one of the most exciting times to be an oncologist.
Gal, it's a question to you. Your father spoke a little bit about connectivity, about communication, and about communities. You were focused mainly on the single cell and to some extent on the connection between the entire body of the patient and the physician. And I ask you to talk a little bit about the community and connectivity between the cancer cells among themselves, and make some prediction on how the silicon world and what we know from the silicon world can help us understand what's happening in the carbon world.
Okay, so so number one, the cancer, if we step up of the microscope, the cancer, actually it is some sort of an organ. It's a distorted organ. It's a pathological organ, but it is an organ with its unique metabolism, unique vasculature, I mean blood supply, and effect not just on the nearby surroundings, but also we call it endocrine effects, meaning effects by remote effects. And for example, the reason that cancer patients have low appetite and they lose weight, all of that, it's a remote effect of the cancer on the brain, on the liver, on the metabolism of the body. So clearly, there is an immense interaction between the cancer cells themselves. They guide each other between the cancer cells or between the cancer organ and the host, the patient, and also with the immune system. There is cross interaction. The immune system is also an organ, but I think it's the most complicated organ, even just from the standpoint of, geographic standpoint. When you think about lungs, you know where they are, right? The lungs are here, the kidneys are there. The immune system is everywhere, and these cells communicate with each other. Or there's also communication in biology. There are molecules which are secreted and recognized, and it triggers biological effects and guidance of cells. So definitely there is an interaction. How can we learn on these interactions? So now genetics is not the issue anymore. The issue is to interpret the data, actually. To generate it now, it's not an issue. To interpret the data, this is an issue. We now have proteomics. Proteomics is the analysis of proteins. The genes are the blueprint. The proteins are the machines, so just looking at the genome doesn't always tell you what actually is going on, because each cell has the entire genome. So learning about which proteins play a role, to dissect the different components within the cancer, within the host, even the microbes, the bacteria that reside on our skin, inside the intestines, they also have an amazing effect on our health, health condition, and also in pathology. Now it's called the microbiome. This is a huge area which is now, like, it's not a buzzword, every publication, Science, Nature, everything on that. So we are now in the area of combining all of these interactions with each other. It's not we, but it is, because I don't know how to do it, but bioinformaticians, statisticians, computer science people, they integrate the data retrospectively. Now each clinical trial, major clinical trials, are now also, they integrate these components. They collect all of the data that they can. They integrate it into models and try to see whether a final clinical outcome, response, benefit, survival, whatever, can be correlated back or tracked back to certain biomarkers. The field of biomarkers in oncology now, it's almost the most important field today, because you can create a wonderful technology which helps to 20 or 25% of the patients. Each technology costs, I don't know, $100,000, $200,000, and you need to understand to which patient to give it. So societies wouldn't collapse economically, and we'll be able to do the right clinical trials, the payers, the regulators, all of that. So the question that you asked, this is I think, one of the most important fields at the moment now, which integrates everybody, the biologists, the geneticists, the immunologists, the clinicians, clinical trialists, computer softwares, all of that. This is what we do today. I hope that within few years, some of it will be generated into actual clinical insights, which will affect the practice.
Actually, I can give you a homework that you gave me, and that is look for the answer. If you say 100% is your own cells plus all the various kind of, I don't want to say parasite, but all the others that reside on your skin and inside and so on and so forth, and what is the percentage of each, look for it. You'll be surprised how much you are you. Yeah, I know the number, thanks to you, yes.
First of all, I want to thank you both very, very, very much. Let's give them a hand. And